Sounds good.
Okay, here we go. We are live one more time, and I keep saying that like it's going to be the last time, but that's not the case at all. We're grinding out here. Anyway, we're back for laying it down with Big D. I am your host, Andrew Big D Morrow, and today I'm joined by fellow caster, not just in the Counter-Strike space, but of all esports gaming things related, Mr. Corey Haughtsauce. Haughtsauce, how are we doing today?
Hey, doing great, man. Just ecstatic to finally get to be in touch with you. I've seen a lot of stuff that you've done in the Counter-Strike realm. So I've seen a couple of these you posted on Twitter, but you had reached out, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm excited to come spread the word of esports, so to speak.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we're still in. Oh, we got animals getting excited over here. We're still in humble beginnings here at laying it down, but we still got big passion, big dreams, and we definitely have a strong love for esports, and that's why I'm excited to have you on here, because as I was looking through your stuff, yeah, like you said, we've talked and seen each other in passing and known about each other for a while now, but this is our first time actually getting to sit down and talk. And my goodness, Haughtsauce, you have an insane repertoire of games that you have to cast. Can you? Do you want to talk a little bit, open us up with just how wide of a scope you have in the esports community while my cat forces his way into the frame?
Yeah, well, hey, we love animals. Usually people, so it's okay. I've been for 6 years. Probably 50 different titles, including board games and things. Times when I fly out to for kids, a lot of games.
Hang on, I'm so sorry to cut you off.
I'm
so sorry to cut you off here. We gotta check something here. Our internet connection is absolutely bonkers, and I don't know if it's my iPad or my computer or what.
All right, mic check 1, 2.
Yeah, okay, there we go. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I think maybe there was some final moments of my last video uploading at the very last minute. I'm so sorry for cutting you off.
No worries. No worries.
We'll probably
brother.
leave all of this in there because we love to leave raw, unedited footage in for the people. Anyway, I can hear you very clearly now. Will share it. If you could hear
no
on
problem.
my end, you sounded like a robot and it was going
You
crazy,
sounded
and
the
I felt
same. Yeah,
okay.
you sounded the same. So no worries. We'll kick it back. But as I was saying, I've been doing this for about 6 years now. I can't even count the amount of events that I've done. Probably close to over 1,000 events since I've started. But I do more than 50 different titles, from board games to card games and things like that. And I think, I typically like my FPSs, but usually once a year I fly out and do something for Extra Life for kids, and that's where I get to do a lot of the different card games, board games, Mario Kart racing, and then they always have like a mystery game at the end that nobody's allowed to know until the final day. So sometimes I'm casting stuff that I'm not even quite as familiar with, but I'm usually pretty good about diving into some research and finding stuff if I don't have the knowledge I need.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is it based on how much you do? Is there any game or is there anything you won't try? And then what's your process for when you are learning something that you're like, oh, I have no idea. I have no idea what this is.
I've always said that I could cast somebody microwaving a burrito. So there's nothing that I won't try. But I was casting some Super Smash for a while, and I just felt like I wasn't quite where I needed to be versus where some of the other casters in the scene were. So I do a lot of high school stuff, and I was doing all the titles over there, but I did step back from Super Smash Brothers. I just felt like, hey, there's probably more people in our group here that are a little bit better than I am at this, and so I don't need to hog up all the gigs. I like to share that talent as well. So I did step back from Super Smash Brothers. But other than that, I pretty much do anything and everything except League as well. League of Legends is another one. There's just so much to learn in that game, and I was more of a Smite player when it comes to MOBA or Deadlock, which I have casted as well. But probably League of Legends and Super Smash are the only two I just don't enjoy doing as much.
Is there a specific reason for that, or I mean, you said that you don't want to take up gigs in the Smash space and the learning League of Legends, but I didn't hear you say you don't do Dota, so I'm wondering if there's a reason you don't do League versus Dota.
Well, I've never played Dota and I've never tried to cast Dota. That has n that opportunity hasn't knocked at the door yet. For me, League, there's just you need to when I do a job, I wanna do a great job. And so for me, there's a lot to learn in League. It's much like Smite, but I played Smite for 7 years, so I know all 110 plus gods. I know the hundreds of items that you use and what counters what. And so right now, I'm just so invested in my work that I literally don't have the time to sit down and learn a game like League or something like that. I think I did my first event January 15th of this year, and I'm like 5 events away from my 150th event for the year.
Oh goodness, my you are one of the busiest men in esports then.
Yeah. So I try to cast Monday through Sunday. Most of my weekends and weeks are booked up, but I mean I love it. I was able to buy my first house last year. I can support my family from this. I always tell people it certainly hasn't been an easy journey, but it has been a fun one.
Well, and take me back to the start of it. How did you get back in? How did you get into casting? Because if I'm not mistaken, you are probably from the same age range I am. I was born 1990, so I've seen a lot of gaming over the last 35 years. How did you get started in casting?
Yeah, I always tell people I'm old but gold. They like to call me Albert
That's right, baby.
Feinstein. So so sometimes we title our stuff Albert Feinstein, but I'm 39. I just turned 39 in January, but I've been doing this for 6 years. Prior to meeting my wife, like 6 years before that, I streamed for a little bit, and because I was in a bad motorcycle accident, it put me in a wheelchair. So I streamed for the year I was in a wheelchair, and I had a lot of success. Neverwinter, the game itself, actually picked me up, and I did a lot of stuff for them. But at the time that who I was with didn't want me to continue to pursue that. It wasn't quite enough money at the time, so I continued to live life for a while. I ended up meeting my wife, and then 9 days after we had a baby, she had a massive hemorrhagic stroke. And so she was in a coma for months. They cut out half of her skull and left it in a refrigerator because of the brain swelling, things like that. And so I had to quit both of my daytime jobs to stay home and take care of my kids and my wife. And so after a bunch of rehab and the wheelchair and stuff, we finally got her home and got situated. After about a couple months, I thought, well, I can't work. What can I just try to do maybe on the side a little bit to make some income? So I started streaming again. It worked for me, 6 years prior. Well, within 2 or 3 months, my viewers bought me my first PC. I started out at Xbox and Connect. They bought me my first PC, and I said, "Well, I played Counter-Strike when I was in high school, middle school, so let me just dig this game up and try again." So when I was dead, I'd start casting over my rounds for the remaining people that were alive, and an org just happened to stop by, and they're like, "Hey, we love that. Would you love to cast for us?" And so I ended up casting for them. They ended up having a pretty famous team that went on. One of their players ended up filling in for Device for Ninjas in Pajamas for quite some time for the Blast Premieres. Fuzi, Phzy, pretty famous Swedish CS player. And then they ended up picking up an RLCS team, so I got to cast RLCS within like my first 6 months of casting. And then it just kind of took off from there. I realized that like this is something I've always loved to do, but the problem for me was getting your foot in the door places. I would ask other casters and nobody wanted to help me. Or you sound too hype, you're too excited, you need to tone it down a little bit. And I'm like, well, this is what I like, and this is what I like to hear. And so I understand that there are different casters and some people like different stuff. But the one thing I've often told other casters when they're up and coming, I said, hey, you're good. Always ask for advice. And sometimes you're gonna get some not good advice. So don't be afraid to ask, but also don't be afraid to like not listen to everything you hear because especially in the esports world and the content creation world, everybody's journey is different. What works for this guy might not work for this girl or guy. You know what I mean? And so you take the advice, you take it with a grain of salt, you see what does work for you and what doesn't, but you should always be comfortable throwing your own style or flair on the mix, so to speak.
I think that's really well said, especially and super insightful, man. You've got a new best friend around here because Big D's going to be hitting you up on the regular for your
Yeah,
advice.
I'd love to get in the booth with you a couple times as well. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, dude, OSS season 8 coming up. Come hop on a cast with us. We're gonna have some fun. It'll be a hoot. No, but what you said too about how, especially in esports and content creation, Like content creation is a brand new industry. Obviously, humans have been entertainers since time immemorial, but content creation on the level that we see it with the internet and being able to put out there and find these niche communities and whatever you want, it is a brand new thing that humans are exploring, and it is something that is very unique to each individual that does it, right? And
Mhm.
I think it's really easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to others and their journey as well when you're starting out and trying to avoid I'm just throwing in my little piece of advice as well
Oh,
here
for
that
sure. 100%.
like avoid comparing yourself to others and their levels of success. Ask for advice, like you said, like learn from each other more than like try to put each other down, and we'll really lift this
Mhm.
thing up beyond new heights. So yeah, I like that a lot. And I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
and I think it's good to be competitive like that, like, you want to be competitive with other casters, but,
Yeah.
when I first started out, it was nobody wanted to help me because everybody had this fear of, "Well, there's not enough work, and if I help another caster, they're gonna get work that I should get," you know, and it was just so I've always taken the opposite approach, I've always trying to help people, you know, if they wanna ask me. I don't like, at the end of a cast or something, I don't, "Well, you could have done this, this, and this better." You know what I mean? I don't bother people with that. If they wanna ask, I don't mind giving my input, but, like, I don't know, I'm not there to rain on anybody's parade. I probably should sometimes say stuff. I think maybe that's one flaw that I have where there's times where I probably could say stuff that would be helpful to a caster, but I'm a little bit like hindered by the idea of I don't want to upset them or give them a negative feeling about casting and turn them away from it because like we all make mistakes even today after doing it for 6 years there's times where I maybe stumble across some words again. You have to be willing to just let that stuff go because we're all human, we all make mistakes. Whether you're flipping burgers or casting or it doesn't matter, we're all human, we all make mistakes from time to time.
Well, and regardless too, we're doing this because we want to do it, and
Yep.
because it's fun. It's not life or death at the end of the day. Like we have to. My first acting teacher that I had a few years ago, his piece of advice is like, "Hey, take this really really seriously, but like at the end of the day, remember like the worst thing that's going to happen to you is you bored somebody. Like
Yeah.
that's the worst thing that's going to happen here. You're not losing lives or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, just keep it fun. Well, I was gonna ask you too. Do you have a favorite game that you like casting, and why is it Counter Strike?
I would probably say my favorite is Valorant,
Is it
followed by
actually?
Counter-Strike. I like Valorant just a little more as a whole, but I grew up playing Counter-Strike. I have a lot of great memories with Counter-Strike, and so I do still enjoy Counter-Strike, but I think the biggest thing for me is I've casted all 3 days of TwitchCon in 2022. I've casted some big RLCS stuff. I've casted some other big teams. Nobody treats me like the high school kids. When I go to do these high school lands, as soon as I step off and I'm in the building, "Hot sauce! Let me sign my jersey. Can I get a picture?" Parents are wanting pictures with me, even grandparents. We love watching you cast our kids' game every Wednesday." And the feeling that I get from the appreciation from these families and these students is tenfold. I mean, obviously, I need the money. This is how I support my family. My wife's on disability. I have too many kids, just pumping them out. But and so it is important to me to be able to make money, but the high school stuff is my least paying gig, but I mean, I've been doing it for 4, almost 5 years now for the high school stuff specifically, and they just make me feel so appreciated, and it's just I absolutely love it, and nothing against the other casters because there's a lot of really great talent over, especially at our PIEA TEC league, but, like, there'd be 6 casters there, and I'm, like, the only guy that they're asking for autographs for the most part, so it just like I said, it's one of those things, maybe it's cheesy, maybe it's corny, I don't know, but, man, it just makes me feel so good about, what I do, and so I love it.
Yeah, I can believe that the kid, and that's something that I've thought about a lot too. Is like high school is really where, I mean, college sports is where we start seeing who's gonna make it pro, but like sports on a general level start at the high school level. Like that's where recruiting and
Starts
scouting
at middle
starts,
school
right?
now even. Yeah, yeah, I
Oh
mean,
my
the recruiting
goodness.
starts at high school, but, I mean, we have some middle school kids playing on high school teams, especially in Rocket League that are grand champ or SSL. Just last weekend, I did a spin showcase where basically hundreds of colleges watch these high school students play. It's kind of like a combine for students. And there was an eighth grader about to be a freshman who was out there just, I mean, looking like a monster. You know what I mean? And so it's amazing that these students have such opportunities at Young Talent. I've had friends now that or not, I've made friends through casting these high school leads. There's been 2 or 3 students that I've casted almost all the way through high school, and now a couple of the colleges that I cast for, 2 of the kids are on one of these colleges. And so it's really cool to see that growth. I mean, the parents have talked to me about it a bunch of times as students. And so, they keep in touch with me afterwards, let me know where they go, and I try to catch games. But it's really cool to see them develop and have an opportunity, have an outlet to better themselves. I was doing an event for Indiana esports high schools, and one of the teachers told me that, at least in their state, they had done a study, and it was like 68% of kids who never participated in an extracurricular activity like basketball, football, or anything are now participating because of esports. So 68% of these kids in this state now are participating in extracurricular activities, getting kind of that team camaraderie, working on team communication, building those social skills that didn't have an opportunity before. I love traditional sports as well, but it's not for everybody. So it's nice to see young kids getting an outlet where they can put time and effort into things outside of school that they enjoy, and not getting themselves in troubled situations like I might have done a little bit when I was in high school. So it's great because gaming was an outlet for me too. It kind of kept me out of trouble at some bad times in my life. So it's great to see young kids getting many more opportunities now.
Yeah, dude, you and me are like two peas in a pod here, hot sauce. Big D might have been in and out of the principal's office on a regular basis throughout school, so I know all about it. And yeah, I that's part of why I'm so interested in getting involved in younger people being involved in esports, is because
Mhm.
like you said, traditional sports are fantastic, and obviously taking care of your physical body is good, but like not everybody in the world can approach it the same way, whereas like a video game, yeah, you can for the most part. I mean,
And
more
not
people
everybody
can.
enjoys football, right? Like, if you love football, that's
Yeah.
great. I mean, I like some football, I like soccer, I like a lot of sports, but some people, I mean, the world is a huge place, right? We're all on this giant rock spinning around in space together, and so there's so many different walks of life and different opinions, and some people might not like traditional sports or, watching gaming or TV shows or something, and so it's great that there are more outlets now that it's not just a video game. Oh, get outside and go do something. You have hand-eye coordination, you have social skills, building that team synergy, working on strategies. There's a ton of stuff that goes into it behind the scenes where, I think a lot of the older people initially thought, well, they're just sitting in front of a screen and playing games, but there is a lot more to it. And I think these structured school systems that allow them to kind of grow and learn has really kind of shown that that platform is a viable thing to help students grow in the right direction.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, man. You getting me inspired here, dude. Because seriously, in Counter Strike especially, like it's it's a much more gloomy picture for Counter-Strike because of the fact that like Counter-Strike isn't so adopted by a lot of these younger generations and like school systems that like get kids into esports, because it's the terrorist, counter-terrorist, there's
That's
bomb
the thing.
planting, it's
Yep.
very blatantly you're shooting a man in the head and killing him, all of these things that I understand. And it's like oftentimes a very gloomy picture that like, well, it's really always just going to be here, but it's never going to be bigger than what it is. But like, not it. Esports are so important, and like, yeah,
Oh
there's
yeah.
more than Counter Strike. But do you feel like, I mean, you know what I'm talking about with Counter Strike,
Counter
right?
Strike
Like,
won't make it in high schools unless they change the name of terrorist and counter terrorist. That's the biggest part. I mean, we've got Valorant in high schools. We've got Overwatch in high schools. We've got fighting games. We got all kinds of stuff. But I think it's just the fact that it says terrorist and counter terrorist. But Counter Strike's super popular in college. And even to this day,
yeah,
Counter Strike has some of the biggest monetary tournaments of any game. I think the only game right now that has toppled Counter Strike is Marvel Rivals
really?
as far as prize pools go. They just had a $3 million prize pool.
Well,
Um,
League of Legends and Dota probably take the cake on those
League,
things,
I,
but
I would say League is the
they're
number
not
one
really.
overall everything.
Yeah,
I did
it's the
recently look that up.
But then like the Dota has like the internationals that are like whatever it was 6 years ago, it was like $29 million prize pool or something like that. Like Dota, I think has had the single biggest prize pool for a tournament and like stays big. But yeah, those don't really count to me. Yeah, okay, so I didn't know about that compared to other esports. That Counter
Yeah.
Strike had
And
such big prize pools.
oh, they do. I mean, they have $1 million prize pools at times, but I think Simple and Navi were the last ones. If you win all 3 big cups, you get an additional million. And I don't know if they
That
still do that, but I know Navi and
actually
Simple were the last to do that that I remember, but
The most recent to do it actually just happened again. It's the Intel Grand Slam, is what I think you're talking about, where it's
yep.
like four. If you win 4 out of the 9 events in a year of Intel first place, you get the Grand Slam. So, however it works, I don't know the exact workings, but yeah, what you're talking about, Vitality just won it a few weeks ago for the first time since Navi and Simple won it. So
Okay.
yeah, I had forgotten about that as well, but it's so do other tournaments just not have like what's the average prize pool for an esports tournament?
I mean, it depends. When you're up into that pro scene, it's significantly more. But I mean, right now I do a lot of Tarkov Arena as well, and I mean, we've just in these small, just every 2 months doing a tournament. I mean, they offer $10,000 and $20,000 €20,000, I think it was, which is more than the dollar. But so I mean, to me, that's a huge tournament, right? But when you look at like the esports World Cup, those prize pools are 70 million. Now that's for all the games combined. I think Dota in 2021 had 40 million. So like, but the 70 million is the games combined. So this year is supposed to beat the previous year, which was 62.5 million. This year it's supposed to be 70 million, but again, that's going to be in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, from July 7th to August 24th. So that's gonna be a huge one. Obviously, there's all kinds of like politics around that with the Saudis and all that stuff that it's crazy, but
There, yeah, we've managed to avoid politics on laying it down with Big D, even if Big D hasn't avoided politics altogether.
yeah, I
Uh,
feel it. I feel it.
yeah, I mean, uh, it's one of those things that I am going to avoid talking about any feelings I
Absolutely.
have about where the money comes from, but it is something that's like 100 years from now, will we look at like this as like I mean, it might be a point to be studied and where it came from, but like it's kind of a big deal for esports, like having that big of a tournament each year right now that really bolsters the scene for everybody. Um, and I'm by no means saying like, hey, that's totally cool that it's happening. I'm just saying, regardless of how it's happening, it is happening, and it is a good thing for our scene. Um, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's always good to engage in conversation. I think there's obviously right and wrong times to have those kind of political conversations and aspects, but it's tough to navigate around that water because everybody's chasing a dream or a passion, and like I said, everybody's road's different. So I try not to be too judgmental with a lot of things, but I too just try to steer away from politics or religion, just because 90% of people can't have that conversation. I might wholeheartedly disagree with you 100%, but I'm not going to call you an idiot or, a cuss word or put you down because of that. I'm like, well, I don't see it that way at all. I 100% disagree with you. I respect you and appreciate you for sharing your opinion with me. But I let you know right now, I 100% disagree. And I think not enough people can have that engagement. It's too like, well, if you disagree with me, you're attacking my personal character. And so it's unfortunate that we can't have those good conversations because I think we could get somewhere a little bit quicker if we could, but unfortunately, we just gotta deal with the cards that deal with the cards we're dealt with, so to speak, so here we are.
Yeah. Well, and I think I think not just like having that conversation in politics or religion, like specific topics, but like we see like that being kind of the general online culture, at least in North American Counter Strike. I know, and any high stakes competitive video game that you play, Dota, League of Legends, Rainbow Six, Valorant, Counter Strike, all of these games, you can go in and talk about how toxic their community is, right? But it's really a matter of people not being able, like people online. Do you think people online need to just get,
It's
hang on.
50-50. I already know where you're going, and to
Yeah,
me,
I
it's
thank you. I'm
50-50.
glad you do.
It's 50-50. I personally, I grew up talking shit. I love shit talking. Teabagging and Halo all the time. Proximity
Right.
chat, love it. I think there is a right way and a wrong way to talk shit. Now, if you are playing, in ranked games or something, that shit's fine. If you are playing in a competitive scene, collegiate with colleges or different things, you shouldn't put it in there, right? Because just like when you play football or you played soccer in high school, you might have a little bit of banter out on the field. It wasn't bad. At the end of the game, you all line up and you walk down and you GGs and you shake everybody's hand. And so I think there's right and wrong times for it. And then I also think there's right and wrong ways to do it. It's one thing to shit talk. It's another thing to be racist or homophobic or just say really hateful word. You see people talking about people wanting mothers to die or, graping people and different things like that. People take it too far, and that's the
Right.
problem. And so I think because people have taken it too far for too long, they're cracking down on it maybe a little bit, on some of the stuff that they don't need to crack down on, but because there's been so much hate. So like I see both sides, but as an old head, I love talking shit. So if I'm playing games with my friends or little fighters, I'm talking shit to them the whole time. But like I said, the people in this day and age, and probably before as well, but they're good at taking it too far. They don't know when enough is enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is, yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get at there is it just feels like people don't know when to back down off of that ledge. Well,
Mhm.
I want to steer back into some Counter-Strike territory. All right, do you know you how much Counter-Strike do you follow? I mean, you follow all esports, but how much Counter-Strike specifically do you follow?
I mean, honestly, in the last couple of years, I haven't followed much of the pro scene. Once my boy Fuzi was out of ninjas and pajamas and stuff, I kind of because I'm so invested in everything I do, so I follow the teams in my league. Like right now, I have an NA advanced team that I cast for, and then I have an EU main team that I cast for. So I try to take at least 2 days out of the week to research what's going on in the league, what teams are currently kind of at the top, who's playing well, who's on a hot streak, who's that underdog that's been playing. I try to do my due diligence when I can. I have a ton of stuff coming up right now though, so these next 3 weeks are insanely busy for me. I've got a couple lands coming up, a couple big Tarkov arena tournaments. I'm in touch right now with some people up in Cleveland, Ohio. They want me to come and teach a casting class to young kids. So I'm trying to put together like a little either 1 day or 2 day workshop for kids right now as well. And so I try to stay up as much as I can, but I think that there are times when I fall behind a little bit because I am so invested in so many different things. So finding time to balance all that stuff and then also, wife and kids, it can be difficult.
Oh yeah. Well, in I'm gonna ask you the same question I asked Big and Tall Matt because Big and Tall Matt's also very involved. Has his hands in a lot of different pots and does a bunch of stuff, and then is a husband and father on top of that. How do you how do you find time for yourself? How do you find time for hot sauce in all of the chaos, and how do you kind of navigate through the stress levels of keeping your plate that full?
This is my time, baby. I love this stuff, dude. Like, this is what I'm so passionate about. Like, I can't tell you how much of a dream come true this is for me. And obviously, we'd all like to make a little bit more money, but that's my goal is I don't have to be rich and famous. I do need to make just a little bit more money because I want to get my family into a better area and a better school district and stuff like that. So I think that's the toughest part for me is like combating that grind with should I get a second job somewhere else? But my wife has been incredibly supportive. My kids love what I do. When I go to some of these high school lands that are closer, I bring my family with me. So most of these schools and kids and parents know my family as well now. Um, but yeah, I mean, I love this stuff. And so if I'm not casting, I will take usually I game at nighttime. So I do some heavy drinking gaming from like 10 a.m. till 6 a.m. Then my kids get up. I help get ready, them ready for school sometimes, things like that. Send them off to school, find my, 4 to 6 hour nap up until about noonish. and then rinse and repeat. Most of my stuff starts, around noon to 2 p.m. Eastern, and then I'm usually casting until 9, 10 p.m. Eastern, and then I switch over, stream for a little bit, game, have some fun, and rinse and repeat, baby.
Love what you do, and it'll never feel like work. That's
I love
that's
it,
uh,
man.
that's what they say. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. Every time I get to sit and cast, there's things that I've found in life where, like, when I'm sitting and playing the bass and I'm like in a really nice pocket of a groove and just going with it, and in time, there's like a certain just perfect alignment with the universe feeling. I
Oh
get
yeah.
that same feeling when I'm casting Counter Strike. So yeah, I feel you on that. What are you playing right now? What's your game of choice right now?
Mm. I was playing Rivals pretty heavy. I got to Grandmaster, but I haven't got to play much since the reset. I tried the Marathon beta. I tried the Arc Raiders beta, and so more recently, I've been playing a lot of games that are about to come out. I like to get a foothold early. I like to play everything so that I can know if there's something. I casted the first ever world, the finals for the game, the finals, but I was 27th in the world for that game. Number
Oh,
2 in the world for Hype Squad. I was number 1 in the world with the Brute Chieftain for Halo Wars way back when that game came out for like 6 or 7 months. So I'm a gamer and a grinder at heart. I've been gaming since I was 4 or 5 years old, living with my grandparents. My grandpa hated my Nintendo. He was a very outdoor guy, kind of guy, but he would still drive me down to our little local. It was basically like a stand that sold fresh produce and stuff, but they had a little stack of games that you could rent, on a good name basis. Here's $10, you can rent the game, bring it back in a week type deal. And so from a young age, I loved video gaming. And honestly, it helped a lot with my hand-eye coordination. I played baseball, soccer, football, ran cross country. I did a lot of sports as well. And I felt like, that it helped with my hand-eye coordination. I eventually got into boxing and things like that. And so, um, my last boxing match was when I was 27, but then I got in that bad motorcycle accident, put me in a wheelchair for a year. And so I did have to give up on that. But so, I don't know, it's just I've always been passionate about games since I was probably about 4 or 5, and to be able to cast it and showcase, the different talent. And a lot of times when I'm done casting, I mean, I get showered with, "Oh, we loved having you cast," I recently have come into the Tarkov scene, and now I'm getting so many gigs, and, like, I can't thank the communities enough for liking what I do.
seriously, yeah, it feels good to get that praise when you're done. I don't know about you. I definitely love being the center of attention, and I think
Yeah.
I might have a praise kink as well. Because boy, howdy, I love when they're telling me how good I did. So, well,
Yeah.
dude, I seriously appreciate you sharing all of that and coming on here and talking about this. I've got two last questions here. I like to keep these around the average lengthish of a pug. And I think you have a lot more stories, and eventually I'm going to have to start cycling back through people and laying it down. So I definitely want you to come back. But
Yeah,
my
for
last
sure.
two questions are, I know you're not following professional Counter Strike right now, but you know that there's a major coming up, right, in Austin in June. Do you have and Simple is going to be playing in it? Do you have any predictions on what's happening? And if you don't, that's fine. You can just say fuck the major. Let's focus on NACS because that's kind of how I'm feeling about a lot of things. But it's in
I
North
mean,
America, so I do care.
yeah, I mean, I wish I was watching more currently so that I had a better understanding. If I were to give any guesses, I mean, they would be completely wild. I really don't know very, very much in that pro scene right now. So I know, yeah, honestly, I feel like I wouldn't be doing myself a justice. I'd probably be making myself look like an idiot if I gave a valid opinion on that. So I do probably need to dig a little bit more deeper into some of the scene there. But I don't know. I've always liked teams like FlyQuest, Complexity. I haven't been the biggest Falcons fan, so
Yeah,
I guess I have my opinions on teams, but as far as, like, who's going to win or who's going to come out on top, honestly, I haven't followed the Counter-Strike pro scene almost at all this season. I've only watched one series of games with a buddy, on Discord when I had a few moments, so
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
What
I'm
about you?
kind
I
of
mean,
this.
maybe you could give me a little breakdown. What do you think's gonna
Well, that's
happen?
no. See, this is you're ruining my secret. I'm trying to find out from everybody else what they think is going to happen, so then I'll sound smart when I talk about it.
That's
Uh,
fair.
n- no, what you said is how I feel. I always root for underdog teams. You know, I want to see the exciting moments. That's just who I've always been. As a person watching any kind of competition, I always root for an underdog. Um, so anything like that, I'm rooting for. Obviously, any NA team, complexity, M80 wild card.
Yeah.
Uh, but for me, I have been following this Vitality project for like 5 years since ZywOo got picked up by them. And they had
Okay.
like NBK, RPK, and Apex, and I think uh, Kiyoshima was the fifth player for them at the time or something like that.
You
Whatever
said
it was,
Kiyoshima?
I think it was Kiyoshima.
So he plays competitive Tarkov now. He's on a pro Tarkov arena team.
Does he really?
I cast him all the time.
Oh, that's
So, and
wild.
that's like every day, every time in chat. Is that the Kiyoshima from CS? And they were like, no, it's the one from Roblox, guys. Calm down. Like,
It's
yes,
the
it's the
one
Kiyoshima
for
from CS. But yeah,
I
he's been playing competitively Tarkov Arena probably for about a year now, at least from what I've seen casting.
well, that's cool to hear. Yeah, he was somebody I always really liked in interviews. He just had a great personality, and
There,
he was
yep,
really fun to
100%.
watch on teams as well. So I'm happy to see he's out there still doing more stuff. I sometimes wonder where a lot of these
Well,
professional players are now, if
his
they're out in the
team
regular workforce or something.
his team has won the last 2 HPL Euro Cups, undefeated in
Is that
both of
like
them.
the big arena tournament right now?
That's the big Europe tournament. Now, there is a bigger one called the Arena Cup Series where they include Europe and CIS regions, the Russian region. So there's not one with NA included as well. NA has its own HPL, Europe has its own HPL. Those are the primary ones that you see a lot. And then the Arena Cup Series comes in at the end. So they did get fourth. Kiyoshima and his team got fourth in the Arena Series. Virtus Pro insane in Tarkov Arena. They've won the last 2 Arena Cup series very decisively. They've won 9 Marvel Rivals tournaments in a row now, including that big 3 million one. I mean, they have a really good program. So I've funny that you speak of the majors in Austin because Virtus Pro has been struggling a little bit in CS, but I kind of got my eye on them just because of how well they've been performing in so many other titles. They have to have a phenomenal program over there.
Well, yeah, I mean they're one of the oldest organizations in esports as well, so I'm not surprised to hear that. And yeah, they're a team that like there was Virtus Pro used to be the Virtus Plow back in the day on Counter Strike, right,
Yep.
with the Pasha Biceps lineup. And then they went through that restructuring, and that team disbanded, and it took a while to pick up some new teams. But I have heard them doing well in the last several months. I'm pretty sure. So I think they're a contender at this thing if they're there. What my big prediction though is Vitality is gonna dominate this thing and win the major. Although I said something wild, Simple is playing with FaZe right for this
Mhm.
tournament, and I think that
He's
if
being like, isn't he being rented from Navi?
he's being rented from Navi,
Yeah.
whatever that means, like, okay,
Isn't that
Navi,
weird to say? Yeah, it's like,
yeah, he
I
hasn't
mean,
played for you for 4 years. Like, what are you talking
I mean,
about?
that's so smart by them, honestly, right? Because, they get to keep him on the roster, and now they get to keep making money from him without actually having to even have him on the team, and so I think that was a smart business move.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. I just esports business is a very strange thing that business in general does. I'm more of a creative brain. Business in general doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but especially esports business, I'm like I have no idea what you guys are doing, but I think that if FaZe can make it to the quarterfinal, like the stage games of the major, they could take the whole thing just because they are all stage players and thrive off the crowd, and Simple's a crowd favorite, but I do think they're gonna get clowned on in the group stage because they're not playing so hot. But yeah, that's my
Where
big.
are you from? Are you gonna be able to make it down there, or where do you reside, can I ask?
Yeah, please. I live in Tucson, Arizona for now, although I
Okay.
think by the end of this year this will be my last Arizona summer after 6 It'll be 6 years here, 7 years in
Okay.
October. And I'm ready to go back. I'm from the Northwest originally, though, where it's cold and
Okay.
rainy, so
Like
plenty of time
Seattle
to
or
sit it. I
Washington
was
State?
born in Seattle and then grew up in Portland. Like I lived in Seattle for like 10 years and then Portland
Okay.
most of my life until I moved down here to Tucson. But my family isn't still up there. A bunch of my friends I've been reconnecting with over the last several years. Been
Are
talking
you
to
are you familiar with LandFest?
the PDX Land Fest,
Yeah, well, LandFest is
or there's
a
PDX
not
Land is what I'm
yeah,
thinking of. No, I'm
LandFest
not
is a
familiar.
nonprofit organization based out of Seattle. I've been working with them for 6 years. They're the ones they're I work with them. They have a sister company called that is not nonprofit called Spacetime Strategies, but that's the how I got my TwitchCon gig, but they're based out of Washington. Very good company to work for. They do all kinds of stuff, and so if you happen to make it back that way, you should check out LandFest. I mean, they have little chapters. I think they have more than 23 different chapters across the United States. They've got one here in Ohio as well. So yeah, they got them all over, but that's a good company to kind of get into work for if you get an opportunity.
I will thank you for the recommendation. I will be looking into that because we're going to talk a lot more once this camera's done recording as well. I tell you what.
Yeah,
Okay, well, look. No, no,
I was
rip it.
I was just gonna say before we go, I would just touch on some of the big things for casting for those people that maybe are thinking about getting into it because
Yeah,
I
whatever
did
you're
it for
willing to
6
share openly.
years. It took me 5 years to get a casting reel, and so I was lucky enough to be good with words, send out emails, do things like that to get a lot of jobs, and most people can't believe I got the jobs I got without a casting reel, so I'd say getting a casting reel is one of the most important things. Just make sure you're taking little clips throughout so that you can put just a little 2 to 3-minute video together, and that's what I send out my resumes, just a little casting reel. Um, but I did finally build a website, Haughtsauce.com, and so you can learn a little bit more about me there. If you guys are curious, if you happen to watch this, if you want to learn a little bit more about what I do or where I might be, I've got a schedule. You can go to Haughtsauce.com, check it out. I am in the future going to be offering like basically coach casting courses for people, and then at the end of like this 2-week session that I give them, I'm going to guarantee that they get at least 2 live paid gigs with me so they can get some footing under their belt. But, I would say, creating that reel, putting yourself out there, don't be afraid to throw your own mixer style on it even if people tell you you're too hype or too crazy. It's all just about having a good time and having fun out there. And so, I think networking is probably one of the biggest things on top of the reel that can really help people and set themselves apart.
Absolutely. Well,
And
and
always
yeah,
always respect the stash.
respect the stash, dude. He's got merch. He's got merch, baby.
Uh,
That's Big D's next step. I need I'm gonna make a shirt that you know those shirts that say I heart NY on it. It's gonna
yeah,
say I
I
heart
heard
Big
Big D.
D.
There you go.
Yeah, I
Stuff
think
like
it'll
that
sell to
sells
people even
though.
outside of esports.
It does.
So,
It's stuff like that does sell, so.
well, I got one last question here for you, and honestly, this entire episode has been kind of the answer to this question. Very insightful, very great advice, and a lot of stuff for the youth out there to learn from. But the last question I like to ask everybody before we dip out of here is get on a soapbox and preach. Talk to yourself from a younger age, the younger generation, esports, Counter Strike, life, whatever you want to talk about. Give us some advice.
Advice. Well, I'd say that, like kind of like what I said earlier. Everybody's path is different, so you can look at other people, take bits and pieces or tidbits that you like, and maybe incorporate it in your stuff. But your journey is going to be different. So ultimately, you need to be doing something that you enjoy, that you genuinely like. But like I said earlier, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that's the big thing. A lot of times we get afraid to ask questions. We don't want to feel like we're dumb because we don't know something, but just ask that question. And then for a second part of that, like I said earlier, you're not always going to get the advice you want. Some of it's going to be good and you should use it, but some of it might not be that good of advice. So it's okay to not take every piece of advice that you get. But I think at a bare minimum, don't be afraid to reach out and make sure you're having fun.
I love it. Well, Corey, hot sauce.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much for joining us. I'm glad, and I think this is the start of a beautiful friendship and working relationship. That is it. All right, Mama, out of my way.
Um, before we close out, if we haven't, can I let me just give me a g I'm gonna toot my own horn real quick, just to let everybody know, if you do happen to watch it, I do
Heck.
stream, about 6 days a week, so you can find me twitch.tv/Haughtsauce. Unfortunately, on Twitter, it is _Haughtsauce_, and then Haughtsauce.com. So if you're willing to show any love, I'd appreciate any love, support, follows, whatever it might be, but that's where you can find me, and I look forward to seeing you on the other side of the screen, hopefully sometime soon.
Yes, yes, thank you. I need to do better about giving time for plugs. Thank you for that. I was literally thinking about that the other day. All right, and that is